Hello guys, today I'll be talking about my top 30 favorite bands. These bands are in no particular order, and these bands could change at any time. Even some of my honorable mentions could take place of some of the bands in my top 30. You never know. This could change at any time. This isn't concrete, but this is my list for now. So let's start off with the honorable mentions. So we got Genesis, Brecken Benjamin, The Cult, Killswitch Engage, Obituary, Rage Against the Machine, and Death. So let's go ahead and dive into the top 30. Again, in no particular order, but the first band I want to talk about is Rush. I mean, they're probably a top 5 band for me at this point. I mean, you really can't go wrong with any of their albums. All their albums are great. And that's impressive since that they have 19, 20 albums and they managed to not have a bad album. That's pretty impressive. And Moving Pictures, definitely a masterpiece and one of the greatest albums of all time. I mean, it's just so good and definitely one of the best things to come from prog music in general, I'd say. But next we have Faith No More. I know some of my subscribers are not familiar with this band, or if they are aware of them, they haven't checked them out yet. Definitely give this band a chance. Angel Dust, one of my favorite albums of all time, and my favorite album by them, of course. And if you're looking for something a bit more metal, maybe check out their album, The Real Thing. That's probably their most metal album, I'd say. They even did a cover of a Black Sabbath song, War Pigs. But yeah, Faith No More, love this band. I do like Mike Patton, and I also like what he does with Mr. Bungle too. But yeah, Faith No More definitely had to be on here. But next we have Linkin Park, Meteor, one of my favorite albums of all time. And you also can't go wrong with anything from Hybrid Theory also. But even the stuff they came out with after those two albums there's some good stuff from those albums. One More Light probably being the only album I don't like, but yeah, Linkin Park. I mean, Chester Bennington, definitely one of my personal favorite vocalists of all time. But yeah, Linkin Park definitely had to be on here for me, and they're also one of the first bands I ever got into. So I mean, I'm always gonna have a soft spot for these guys. Next, we have Led Zeppelin, one of the first classic bands I ever got into. And I mean, everyone talks about Led Zeppelin 4, but their debut is definitely my favorite. And Dazed and Confused is probably my favorite Led Zeppelin song. But even the lesser known stuff they did, I think is pretty good. Songs like Achilles' Last Stand, or T for One, or Carousel Alhambra. They have a lot of great songs, but yeah, Led Zeppelin, they definitely had to be on here, and John Bonham is definitely one of the greatest drummers of all time. But next we have Black Sabbath. I mean, how can you be into metal but not like Black Sabbath? I mean, they pretty much pioneered the genre, and Master of Reality is maybe one of my favorite albums of all time. I mean, it's probably my favorite album by these guys, and probably some of the best riffs in metal are probably on that album, especially Into the Void. Man, that song is excellent. But even the stuff without Ozzy, I think is pretty good. Not everything, but I mean, I like this. I like most of the stuff from the Tony Martin era. I like the Dio stuff. Even that album with Ian Gillan, I like. Born Again. The album with Glenn Hughes, 7 Star. Can't really get into that album, to be honest, but it has its moments. But yeah, next we have Metallica, another band where if you're into metal, how can you not like Metallica? And if you haven't heard the Black Album and you call yourself a metalhead, then you really need to change. You really need to change that really fast, because that's arguably maybe the most important metal album, or maybe not the most important. You can maybe point that to Black Sabbath's debut, but definitely top 10 most important metal albums. The Black Album would probably be in there. But yeah, especially with its impact and the numbers it made and all that. But yeah, Metallica, I mean, can't deny their success and can't deny the greatness of those first 5 albums especially. But even the stuff they did after those albums I think is pretty good. Not everything was great, but there's a lot of good stuff, I'd say. But next we have Megadeth. Rest in Peace, probably one of my favorite metal albums of all time. Really can't go wrong with any of the songs off that album. Even the more radio or commercial sounding stuff from them is pretty good. Even like Cryptic Writings. But yeah, Megadeth. I mean, Dave Mustaine, definitely a big name in metal. Maybe the god. You can arguably maybe say he's the godfather of thrash. But yeah, Megadeth, definitely a great band. Definitely one of my favorites. But next we have Deftones, one of the greatest new metal bands. Also one of the earliest bands to come from that time. Some people make the argument that they're not new metal, but I call those people. I say that those people are probably in denial because I mean, come on. Well, at least with those first two albums, those are definitely new metal. I think most of us can agree that Adrenaline is at least new metal. Some people make the argument that Around the Fur isn't, but I think there's enough elements about it to make it new metal, especially some of the lyrics and, song structures and Chino's vocal delivery on certain songs. And yeah, Around the Fur, definitely one of my favorite albums of all time. I love that album. Also can't go wrong with White Pony, Kono Yokan, Diamond Eyes, and many other albums. But yeah, Deftones definitely had to be on here. But next we have System of a Down. I'm always going to have a soft spot for this band. Toxicity, one of my favorite albums of all time. Definitely an album that definitely takes me back. But next we have Korn, one of the first bands I ever got into. And they're one of the bands I go to when I'm unhappy or I'm in a pissy mood or I'm just going through tough times. They're a band that I do go to. And even outside of those times, I still listen to them. And Follow the Leader, the self-titled debut, Life is Peachy, Issues. They have a lot of great albums. Even the latest one, The Nothing, probably the best since maybe Take a Look in the Mirror or Untouchables. But yeah, Korn, love this band. And next we have Aerosmith, one of the first classic bands I ever got into. And Steven Tyler, probably one of the greatest frontmen in rock. Definitely have many classics in their discography. Rock's probably being my favorite album by them. I even like their 80s and 90s stuff. When it comes to the 2000s and on, the only album I like is Just Push Play. Some people don't like that album because it's arguably maybe their poppiest album, but I don't know, I kind of dig that album. But I was never really big on Honkin' on Bobo or even that last album, Music from Another Dimension, which only had maybe only a few songs I liked. But Aerosmith, definitely a great band, definitely one of my personal favorites. But next we have Van Halen, David Lee Roth, probably one of the greatest frontmen in rock, I'd say. And I like the Sammy stuff too. Dreams and Pound Cake probably being my favorite songs from that era. But yeah, I love Van Halen. Fair Warning, probably one of my favorite albums of all time. But next we have Trivium, probably my favorite when it comes to metalcore. And I'd say they're one of the best bands to come out within the past 20 years or so. Definitely putting out some of the best metal of this generation. I can go on and on about Trivium. And their recent album, In the Court of the Dragon, is just phenomenal, I'd say. But next we have Iron Maiden. If you're a metalhead and somehow don't have Iron Maiden in your list, then, what are you doing? You're doing it wrong. Because, Bruce Dickinson, you can't deny the greatness of his voice and his range. You really can't go wrong with any of the albums from the 80s from them. And yeah, in the 90s, you could tell they were struggling a little bit, but I like their 90s stuff, minus Virtual 11, which only had a couple songs I liked, Future Real and The Klansman. And also Brave New World, probably one of the greatest comeback albums in metal, I'd say. I love that album. And Senjutsu is probably their best album since either that album or Dance of Death. But yeah, Iron Maiden definitely had to be on here. Then we have Red, probably one of my favorite modern rock bands. And they have this orchestral element to them that definitely makes them stand out. And a band that's kind of overlooked. They do have their fan base, but when it comes to the mainstream, I don't know. They do sometimes kind of get overlooked. You can make the argument that they're kind of underrated, but man, definitely a great band, and I really like Michael Barnes' voice, and that guy can also scream. But next we have Pink Floyd. I've been listening to these guys for a while now. I can't remember when I got into them. I don't know. I honestly can't remember, but of course you can't go wrong with albums like, Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall. But, even the lesser known stuff like Obscured by Clouds or Atom Heart Mother are also pretty dang good. Obscured by Clouds being one of my personal favorite Pink Floyd albums. But yeah, Pink Floyd, I mean, you just can't deny the greatness of their music. And yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next band, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Now, for the longest time, I wasn't a big fan of them, specifically Anthony Kiedis. I wasn't a big fan of his voice or his vocal delivery. I just wasn't really into it. But over time, their music grown on me, and now I'm a fan. And Californication is now one of my favorite albums of all time. And next we have Alice in Chains, definitely one of the greatest bands to come from the grunge era. Lane Staley definitely has a unique voice, rest in peace. And Facelift probably being my favorite album by them, Dirt being in close second. I do like the stuff they've done with Duvall. Rainier Fog probably being my favorite that they've done so far with him. But yeah, Alice in Chains, definitely a great band. But next we have Soundgarden, definitely another band that's one of the greatest bands from the grunge era. Bad Motorfinger probably being one of my favorite albums of all time. Really can't go wrong with any of the songs off that album. Rusty Cage, Outshine, Reuben 1,000 Years Wide, Holy Water, Somewhere. So many great songs off that album. And their other albums are great too. Louder Than Love, Super Unknown. But next we have Judas Priest, definitely an important band when it comes to metal. Rob Halford still sounds great. If you want proof, go listen to Firepower. And they also have many classics in their discography too. Screaming for Vengeance, Sad Wings of Destiny, Stained Glass, and you can go on and on from there. But yeah, Judas Priest definitely had to be on here. I mean, I still return to their music today. But next we have Slipknot, and definitely a band I'll always have a soft spot for. Their music might not be for everybody, but I mean, I've been a fan since like 4th or 5th grade. So yeah, I've been a fan for a while now. Of course, I'm now in college, but and Corey Taylor, probably one of the best vocalists to come from that time in music or time in rock or metal. And that self-titled album, I still love that album to this day. But next we have 3 Days Grace, one of the first bands I ever got into. I always have a soft spot for, especially those first 3 albums. Those 3 albums definitely take me back. And I even like the stuff with Matt Walsh too. And I think Adam also still sounds great today. That last album he did with Saint Asonia, Flawed Design, that album was excellent. If you like 3 Days Grace, you'll definitely enjoy that album. I even like it more than their debut. But yeah, 3 Days Grace, I'll always have a soft spot for this band. But next we have Tool. It's rare for 3 or 4 plus albums to fight for number 1 as your favorite album in their discography. But here we are, because I mean, Undertow, Anima, and Lateralus all fight for my number 1 favorite Tool album. Some people might be confused about why I'd mentioned Undertow, but I mean, I really like that album a lot. It's the rawness and the emotion. It's just that album's just so good. Many great songs like Prison Sex, Sober, Intolerance, 4 Degrees, Flood, and many more. But yeah, absolutely love Tool. But next we have Blink-182, probably my favorite when it comes to pop punk. I'm not a big pop punk fan, but I like a few bands, this band being one of them. Tom DeLonge's voice might not be for everybody. Yeah, it is maybe a bit nasally, but I actually don't mind it. And I mean, there's worse. I mean, go listen to Simple Plan. Probably one of the most nasally vocalists probably ever. Simple Plan is just awful. But anyways, Blink-182, definitely a great band. Again, maybe not for everybody, but I personally dig their music. But next we have Static X, another band that I'll always have a soft spot for. I mean, rest in peace, Wayne Static. Definitely had a unique voice. In nu metal. Wisconsin Death Trip, definitely a classic in the genre. And honestly, I'd say the same thing for Machine. I really like that album a lot. I think that's the album that did the best for them number-wise. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, Machine is great. And their other albums are good too. And next we have Fear Factory, definitely one of the greatest industrial metal bands. It sucks that Burton's gone, but I heard they found a new vocalist, and I heard that they're going to reveal the vocalist through new music or a new song or something like that. So definitely intrigued. I'll trust Dino's judgment, but yeah, Fear Factory. I mean, Demanufacture, Obsolete, Archetype, Digimortal, great stuff, man. And even their later stuff is pretty good. Their latest album, Aggression Continuum, I thought was pretty good. But next we have Def Leppard. Might not have the strongest discography. Mainly the 2000 stuff I'm not a big fan of, but I like everything else though. Some people don't like Slang, but I like that album. It's grown on me. I mean, there was a time where I didn't like it, but it's an album that's grown on me over time again. And Pyromania probably being one of my favorite albums of all time. And of course, you have the album is Hysteria, which is of course a classic. But next we have Dream Theater, and for definitely one of the greatest bands to come from the prog metal scene. And Awake and Images and Words are definitely classics and probably my favorite albums by them. Other favorites being Train of Thought and Octavarium, and of course, Scenes from a Memory. But, and also their, from 2019, Distance Over Time, that was pretty dang good. Probably their best album they've done so far with Mike Mangini. But of course, they have a new album coming this month, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. I ordered the box set, and I'm definitely looking forward to getting that in the mail. Next, we have Queensryche, another band where you can definitely say don't have the best discography. I mean, they do have their share of crap, but the stuff that's really good is really good, though. I mean, The Warning, Rage for Order, Operation Mindcrime, Empire, all great albums. And, you know, Promised Land, kind of underrated. Definitely one of my personal favorites from them. I mean, it's a bit more dark, a bit more moody, maybe a bit more atmospheric, you could say. But man, I really dig that album, and even their latest stuff. You know, like Condition Human, The Verdict. I mean, those albums, you really can't go wrong with anything from those albums. But yeah, I think they've been getting better with each album so far with Todd and the band. Finally, the last band here, Incubus. I know some of my subscribers either don't listen to them or never heard of them, or if they know of them, then they haven't checked them out yet. I mean, they definitely have a lot of classics, especially in their genre. Science, Make Yourself, and Morning View probably being my favorite. That might be another album that might be one of my favorite albums of all time. I really love Morning View. A Crow Left of the Murder was an album that took some time for me to get into. I mean, I liked a few songs immediately, of course, but it was an album that took me some time to actually get into. Six Sad Little World probably maybe being my favorite off the album, and they also have some other albums that I think are pretty good, you know, like Grenades. 8 is okay. If Not Now When doesn't do much for me except for a couple songs, I guess. And then you have the debut Fungus Among Us. But yeah, Incubus, definitely a great band. A band that I would say does kind of need to step it up a bit when it comes to newer music, because their newer stuff honestly doesn't have the best replay value. I'm going to be straight up about that. Even that EP they did last year, I can't remember the last time I returned to it. I'm sorry. But I mean, I'm not saying that their new stuff is bad, but the replay value just hasn't been the strongest, to be honest. And they really do need to, again, step it up, in my opinion. But anyways, that's my top 30. Let me know your thoughts on my top 30. Let me know your top 30, or, you know, if you can't do that, maybe top 5, top 10, or whatever you'd like, or just a general comment about what some of your favorite bands are, and, you know, all that good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like, subscribe. Have a nice day, and take care.